Welcome back to Energetically You, where we talk all about optimal wellness, abundant and growth mindset, and confident decision making. I'm your host, Megan Swan, a wellness coach and consultant. I work with high performance humans, leaders, and modern companies to thread more wellness into their lifestyle and company culture. So ultimately it becomes a way of life and not a check mark on the to-do list. Today, I am excited to get to know better and interview Jay Chase. He is a certified speaker, coach, and host of the top-rated Don't Touch My Mindset podcast. Jay is passionate about helping people overcome the self-manufactured limitations in thinking. Jay is a high sought after motivational speaker and champion for recovery and sobriety. That is one of the ways that I know him, through the Sober Curator. So I am so excited to get to know him in this light and talk all about leadership and self-leadership. Let's dive in. Welcome, Jay. I'm very excited for this conversation and to get to know you better, more in your own limelight. And yeah, let's just start with you. You were mentioning off the top that you get up at, I think, 3:45 a.m. Please tell me all about your morning routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, it's a pleasure to be here. Absolute honor. So thank you for having me on the show. But yeah, 3:45 every single morning. I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. And that is vital to me because I spend the first hour with developing a relationship with my higher power. And then I'm able to journal, write down how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, how I'm being creative. And then I'm able to look at my tasks for the day and actually look at what I want to get done, how I want to go about the day, and what I need to get done. And then I start attacking the day probably about 6 a.m., feeling charged up and ready to pour out into everybody.
Wow. That is really powerful. So what got you onto that practice?
Finding ways to put myself first, so often in our lives, we get caught up in how we should serve others, how we tend to treat others, how we put others first, or other people's feelings. And there's a point in my life where I'm like, yo, I got to put me first. I got to take care of me. My life was on a decline. Even in sobriety, I'm 6 years sober, but even in sobriety, I had to restructure my morning routine because I say we change, we develop, we evolve. And as I evolved, I figured that I wanted to start my own company. I wanted to help more people. But what I realized is that we don't get more time in the day. So the power of sacrifice really kicked in when I was like, all right, how bad do you really want to pour out into people? Because you only have so much time in the day working a full-time job and trying to build your own business. So I actually turned inward, developed the leader within me. And I was like, yeah, we got to take advantage of the time that we do have. And so I started getting up at 5:30. Then I moved out to 5:15. Then I moved out to 4:45. Then I moved it to 4:30, and now we're at 3:45, and I have a son now. So we made that adjustment very, very easy because now I just take like the super early morning shifts to like feed him and do the things and spend time with him. And now I incorporate my inner leadership development journey with my son. And it's triggered me to start writing my book for my son about leadership and what that looks like and how we lead within our own lives.
So many follow-up questions. I completely relate to the sort of, starting. That was an integral part of my initial phases of taking better care of myself. As in, really at that point, I was not a new mom. I had a 2 and a 4-year-old. But yeah, I started with 10-minute morning routine. And now it's, on a good day, a non-negotiable. It's always an hour. If I get 2, it's amazing. So I love that you explained that you didn't just start getting up at 3:45. So people understand that it's a process.
It's a process. It's a process. It's a process. Yes.
So, and I love that you shared, because I also thought when you said 3-4, I'm like, oh, so you're taking the morning shift with the baby. But I didn't want to share it before you did. So congratulations, by the way. It's such an exciting moment in time as a new parent. So I love that you're sort of taking advantage of that spark of inspiration of, what do I want to teach my son? And what can you share with us in terms of some sort of basics for you that you might even, from something that a child can understand about leadership?
Yes. Oh, I love that. Leadership is nothing but influence. Leadership is nothing but influence. Some people think that leadership is a title, it's position, it's people giving you permission so you can lead them. Leadership's not even that. All it is influence over people and how you influence people. And the number one lesson that I want to teach my son, and that's it easy enough for a kid to grasp from the early ages of development of that autonomy, is that in order to influence people, you have to add value. And that will equate to your leadership. It's how much value you add to people.
Yeah. Well, and I think you just kind of, we naturally started talking about how you operate in terms of self-leadership and, really starting your day with a lot of intention so that you're in the best place to, fill other people's cup, maybe on some level. Was that always innate and natural to you, or did you maybe start trying to have a positive impact and add value before you were really supporting yourself first?
Yeah, no, a lot. Yeah, I love this question. It's a really good question because I think it's something that's not talked about enough, with everybody wanting to share their story and everybody's a speaker nowadays and everybody has a story. But no, I spent 4 years developing myself before I even spoke of my journey. And I think that's vital for anybody to spend a decent amount of time alone with them before they start, trying to pour other people's cup, because we got to fill ourselves up first. If we were on an airplane, the flight attendant would tell you, if the plane starts to go down, put the mask on yourself first before you try to save somebody else. And so it's really looking at what do I need to overcome? And once I overcome that, then the people that I can help are the people that I used to be.
Mm-hmm. So can you share maybe some of the threads of aspects of yourself you felt like you had to overcome or sit with or deal with, however you want to?
Oh man, I don't even know if we got enough time on this podcast for all those things.
I did say pick some.
I love it. Shame, guilt, doubt, insecurities. My biggest thing is rejection. I follow through on commitments, controlling my emotions. But really, really, the biggest thing that I had to do was stop speaking without thinking. That's just I got to understand that my superpower is the encourager. My superpower is the leader. My superpower is giving and providing hope for others who don't have it. That's something I'm gifted with. And I had to stop using that strength overextended when I would find myself in an angry situation, when I wouldn't follow through on my commitments, when I would be met with rejection or not acknowledged for my accomplishments or not even getting a compliment. It's just who I am, that I would speak without thinking and ended up lashing out and hurting others. So those are things that I really had to overcome. This need for approval, this primary drive for interaction. When I get into conflict, I tend to attack. So I really had to I got things in me that sparked my leadership journey within. And now I can be this great, amazing man that people see. And now I can pour out, because these are the things that I've actually overcame by myself. And I can pinpoint them and know what I teach, know what I do, and know how I love on people. Yeah.
The lashing out and the anger, I can relate to that one. Was it more of a mirror that was coming up, or was it really just something made you reflect personally differently on how you were showing up?
Yeah. So in 2017, February 5th, I woke up in a jail cell. And I didn't know how I got there, didn't remember, blacked out the night before. I was just drinking too much. And it's not the first time I woke up in a jail cell. So naturally, what I do when I wake up in a jail cell, I press this little button, right? You know what I mean? I got a routine at this point. I'm like, oh, okay, here we are again. But I push this little button. It's like, hey, what's my bond? no bond. I was like, whoa, hold up. This is the first time we ain't never had a bond. Normally I'd get in jail and I could just bond out. We'll deal with it later, down in court, lawyer, whatever. But no bond. I was like, yo, what did I do? Did I kill somebody? Did I what did I had no recollection of it. And I pressed the buzzer again and I said, yo, what's the charges? And they said, probation violation. And I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I was like, at least I know what I did. At least I know, what I'm facing. I know what I'm facing, right? And I was like, Jay's gone for 11 years. Well, luckily it didn't go that way. I spent like 27 days in county, and then I spent 5 months in prison for like a shock. They wanted to show me what my life would be like if I kept leading the way that I was leading. And I was like, absolutely, I get it. And but during those 5 months of being isolated by myself in prison, I really had to confront me. And I had to ask myself, Jay, why are you so angry? Like, who are you angry at? And then when I really started getting down to it, am I angry at somebody or with somebody or this situation? I was angry at the things that I let people have power over me for, like my father, my mother, my sister. So I just started forgiving. I started forgiving myself for letting myself down, for leading myself down this road, for making the decisions that I've made because I was lashing out. And then it really made me think that I was only reacting because of the relationships and the anger that I held within the relationships that I had with everyone around me, not just family members, but friends, the people that I felt important to me. It's just how I treated them. And I was like, wow, this only happened when I drank. And so I literally had to turn inward, confront me, ask myself who I was angry at. When it came down to it, I was angry at myself because I wasn't making the best decisions for myself, nor leading my life in the right direction that I wanted to lead it, or living up to the potential that I've been blessed with. So then I'm like, okay, from here on out, I vow not to lash out, not to be angry, but to be a good person and work on myself and put myself first.
So can you speak maybe more to, like, is that just all an internal dialogue, or do you come to that through journaling? Like, are there tools that you use to help yourself, reflect more deeply?
Yeah. She said, make it practical. I need some practical steps. What can we do? I love it. I read a book called The Power of Forgiveness. A lot of people talk about self-care. A lot of people talk about your self-care routine. A lot of people talk about self-love. I don't believe you can get to any of those things until you go to self-forgiveness. Like, we got to go through that mucky water of self-forgiveness. And this book called The Power of Forgiveness. And like, I couldn't tell you who wrote the book. I couldn't tell you what the overarching point was about the book, but I can tell you the one thing that got me, that hit me in the heart. And it said that forgiveness isn't for the injuster, but it's for yourself. It's to reclaim the power that you have given somebody else. And I was like, oh, nah, what? Well, you mean I don't got to be angry? And so I started writing letters. And the one practice that helped me the most was I made a list of everybody that I needed to forgive, that I've given power to, that I've let control over my emotions of. And then I started writing out to my father, I hate you for, I hate you for, I hate you for, I hate you for, on the front page of this paper. And on the backside, I wrote, I forgive you for those exact same things. And I don't believe that forgiveness is complete until release. And so once I was writing those I forgive you for statements, that was me releasing that back to wherever it needs to go, but not in me. And I did that for my father, my mother, my sister, my other sister. And I did it for myself. And I literally identified, isolated, and devalued what I hated them for, and how much I held on to that, and I released it and let it go. So the practical way is write down what it is and then forgive it.
Yeah, I love that. And did it seem natural to you to do yourself last?
I still felt something brewing in me after confronting all those issues, after confronting all those people with myself. Like, the only person I actually read that letter to was my father. And but my mother, I think she's heard me speak about this practice before, like on stage, but she's never seen the letter, read it, and neither any of my sisters. But I read it to my father. But when it came to me, I was still like, there's something I need to forgive myself, which was, and it made me think back to the book. I said, forgiveness is for me, not for anybody else. And I still did it for other people. And I was like, and so then that's where I was like, yeah, I got to have a difficult conversation with me.
So is it a goal or a dream of yours to be a motivational speaker, or did this just kind of like organically fall
Absolutely
on your
not.
lap?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Looking back, you'll always hear me say that life can only be understood backwards, but we're forced to experience it forward. So looking backwards, I'm like, oh, of course, there's the steps. There it is. There's the signs and symbols that like I can even trace back to the point where it started. But moving and navigating through that, I was like, absolutely not. I remember laying in prison and general population. This guy would get up every single night, tall, like big white dude, tattoos all over his head, all over his body. And he would literally get up and read scripture and like basically preach to everybody in the pod. And it was one day, one evening, I was laying down on my bunk and he comes to my cell and he said, you know, that's supposed to be you, right? And I was like, what, bro? Like, get out of here. What are you talking about, bro? I love what you're saying. Like, I feel you. I'm rocking with you, but yeah, that ain't me. He said, no, that's supposed to be you. God told me to come tell you that that's supposed to be you. And I'm leaving. I'm not going to be here no more. I'm getting transferred. And so I need you to keep this going. And I was like, yeah, all right. Little behold that he got transferred the next day. And I was like, oh, snap. And so I just felt called to literally pick up scripture and just kind of continue and interpret the scripture that I read to the people in the pod. Through then, that was the first time I ever like got in front of people and spoke. And like it felt natural. I'm like, yo, there ain't nobody listening to me. I'm trying. I'm out. You know, I'm really trying. So I kept it up. And then it fell to the wayside. But then I sold cars for 9.5 years. And I'm like, oh, I am a communications expert, and now I'm teaching. Now I'm, you know, as top car salesman for my company, doing those things, and I'm like, oh, it makes sense now. So naturally, it's always been there. Did I acknowledge it or lean into it? Absolutely not. I ran from it. But you know, once I finally sat down and started sharing my story with my podcast, people started listening, and I was like, oh, okay, I got you.
So looking back, do you think that he was just planting a seed? Like, what did he see in you?
I couldn't tell you. Looking back at that moment, I was like, yo, I had no control in that situation. It was nothing to me. That had nothing to do with me. That was the conversations that I was having with myself, the prayers I was praying, like I was just like, all right, cool. Like at this point, I have surrendered to all that I know, and I had no control. Being in a place of like no control at all. So it was the fact that I was like, yo, if this, I gotta have something else direct my steps, because I've tried it my way and I ended up in prison. So let's make the most of it while I'm here and at least be of some type of servitude. And that really birthed my mindset of servant leadership.
That's huge.
Mm.
All right, so let's place. I'm so curious, like what are some of the communication skills that you pull out of all of your experience as a car salesman into leadership, motivational speaking?
Yeah, one would be understanding that everybody speaks in a different language, that not everybody communicates how you communicate. So first and foremost, I'm a certified DISC facilitator, teacher, trainer, communications expert, and emotional intelligence practitioner. And what that does is break down the 4 personality styles that every single person seems to have, right? This assessment was developed about 100 years ago by the same guy who developed the first lie detector test and the character Wonder Woman. Absolutely insane. Like, you know, I was like, how do those two like have any commonalities, right? But they're both designed to get the truth out of you. And so they say that this assessment and this tool is designed to show you who you really are and who you're not. And so when I learned that each personality style has a different communication style, I'm like, oh, I get it. People don't care how much I know until they know how much I care. And just because I speak in a certain way doesn't mean that they're going to resonate. right? With my personality style being very extroverted, very people oriented, and very fast paced, like there's only 30% of the world that's going to communicate with me. And if I learn how to speak another language or another communication style, that's going to take my closing percentage from 30% to 60%, because it's 30, 30, 28, and 12%, like these 4 different quadrants of people in communication style. And I was like, okay, dope. And so when I was able to learn that and learn the priority and the pace of each communication style, I can communicate with somebody very well within the first 60 seconds of saying hello to them. And one, either people are very people oriented, where they put people first, or they're very task oriented, where they put tasks first, right? Or they're either very fast paced or they're very slow paced. Right. There's a mixture of some, there's a, in between, but you can either tell from just that. And so when somebody's slow paced and task oriented, I got to slow down and look at what we're doing. Right. Because I'm people oriented and fast paced. That's going to be right there.
Abrasive.
So, right. So it's adaptability. The biggest thing that I teach is adaptability, being able to adapt to different communication styles.
Brilliant. Love that answer. Yeah. So what, I guess, about fatherhood has surprised you so far?
Oh man, how looking at my child made me realize, even as adults, we're just big babies. When we get hungry, we scream, right? When we're not getting our needs met, we throw a fit. It takes a level of self-awareness. There's a statistic out there, if you believe statistics or not, that 15% of people are actually self-aware. And that's cognitive of thinking, behavior, communication, and emotional intelligence, self-regulation and social regulation, social awareness and self-awareness. And so when looking at my child and knowing that he is completely dependent on me, his mother, and to meet those needs, that he's in not any type of control, is how I should be leading life. Not trying to control things, but more of adding value to wherever I find myself and depending on the relationships around me to maximize and leverage the opportunity.
Good answer. All right. So let's I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. Again, was that something that kind of just fell into your lap, or did it sounded fun, or how did that start?
Complete challenge, man. This is why I always talk about your environment. I hosted a Bible study for about a year at my house and in my home for people who just wanted to develop a relationship with God. And that's what I did. I didn't go to church. I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual in touch with my relationship with my Creator. And I was hosting a Bible study, and my friend, who I've known since high school, junior high, was coming, and beautiful things were happening. Like, he's never even picked up a Bible, and he's in there reading verses, right, in my living room. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I'm the furthest thing from a pastor, right? I'm like, yo, this is crazy, right? And one day after Bible study, he said, Jay, man, because I kind of facilitated it like trainer naturally style. I didn't know it, but he said, Jay, you got an amazing testimony. You got an amazing story, man. I think so many people would benefit from hearing it. And he goes, I think you should start a podcast. And I laughed at him. The same thing I did with dude in the prison. I laughed at him. I was like, yeah, right, a podcast. I was like, yo, if you show me how to create a successful podcast within with a plan, a strategy, like, you show me how to do it, I'll do it in 30 days. And 2 days later, he shows up with a handwritten business plan on how to create a successful podcast. And I was like, dope, I'll see you in 30 days. And 30 days later, I released the first 4 episodes of my podcast. And now, heading into 2023, I have one of the top rated mindset podcasts to follow in 2023. So
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. It is very, very interesting how it plays out. But yeah, definitely something that was not planned. It was kind of like laughed at again. Like, no way.
And it's continues to be sort of a labor of love. Like, how do you look at your process in creating content for it?
I have developed a lot within since starting it. And this is why I always say that we're always evolving, we're always developing. Because now it's not about me anymore. First, my story was about me. At first, it was my story. At first, it was, this is the pain that I felt. Well, now I look at it like, just because I got cut on my leg and you got cut on your arm doesn't mean that we felt pain any differently. People are listening. I believe that your story has the power to change someone's life. So now I interview people from all over the world. Now I continue to put out episodes because there's people who have directly reached out to me and said that I've helped them. And as I pray every single morning at 3:45 to not be in control, but to be effective, it shows the return on my investment.
Last question. We started off talking about leadership really just being influence. So what are you trying to influence at the moment?
Yeah. Honestly, I am literally looking for leaders to add value to. I'm like constantly looking for leaders to add value to. I call it the Maxwell theory. So a huge inspirator of mine is John C. Maxwell, right? And #1 leadership development coach. He's literally trained leaders from every single country in the world. I mean, when you think of every single country, he has trained leaders from that country. And phenomenal guy. And he made a vow to serve 11 leaders, to be available for him for free whenever he wants to. And so I call it the Maxwell theory of every time I book a client, I have to find a client or find a leader to serve for free. So the return on my investment from last week was I had 3 leaders reach out to me. I only work with very few select leaders at a time because I do more organization training. And I made myself available for these 3 leaders. And they're in my program. We're doing our thing. But then I was like, Maxwell theory. Now I got to find 3 leaders to serve for free. So it's like I'm looking for people to add value to. And like I said, leadership is influence. And how do you influence people? By adding value. And leaders go find the people that they add value to. It's not that they sit around and wait for people to ask for help, but we go out and add that value so we can elevate and help people lead their lives better. So what I'm trying to influence right now is just people to live a better life. That's all.
Amazing. You could sort of dilute down, like, is there sort of like a common theme that you're really seeing people specifically struggle with that's, maybe speaks to the times?
Yes and no. I believe that people or the only thing that really makes people frustrated is the art of communication. They don't know how to express, or they express too much. Either their priority is clashing with somebody else's priority, or their pace is clashing with somebody else's pace, whether that's people and task or whether that's slow and fast. So what I believe that all conflict boils down to communication. What are you trying to get across, and what is coming across? And so when it comes to developing leaders, the only problem is just take the time to listen to someone. Like, as much of a great speaker am I, and like as much of an influencer that I am, and a leadership development coach, and working with all these companies and helping people achieve success, I listen to them. The first thing I ask somebody is, talk to me about your failures. That's my first leadership question. When anybody brings me in, and anybody wants to work with me, say, talk to me about your failures. And I'm able to help them develop from the inside out through that, from where they fail.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, this has been phenomenal. Thank you for having me. This is a joy.
We'll share all the ways to connect with you, but is there anything specific you want to point people to?
Just thejchase.com. You can find all the stuff there. All the features, where the events are, everything. thejchase.com. You'll be able to find it all. And on all social media platforms, VJ Chase.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. And we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you greatly. And if you are appreciating the show and you wish to support us in a small way, you can do that by rating us on Apple iTunes. You could share one of your favorite episodes with a good friend who you think would enjoy it. And you can subscribe to the show. All those things help us get more eyes on the podcast. So if you want to connect with me, you can find me on all platforms at Megan Swan Wellness. You can check out the website, meganswanwellness.com. I hang out mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn, so please drop me a message and tell me what was your major takeaway from the show. Have a beautiful week wherever you are in the world. Sending my love.